You're listening to The Current. I'm Jill Riley, and I'm really excited for my next guest. Very excited to talk to Kacey Musgraves, who has a brand new album called StarCrossed. Kacey, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, the new record, StarCrossed, it is out now. I know you're coming to St. Paul, really kicking off your tour, it looks like, here in St. Paul at the XL Energy Center. So that's great. You must be
Yes,
really looking forward to it, to getting out and
I
performing for
am. I
people.
mean, I'll be honest. Not in January. I'm not a cold weather person, but it's going to be really fun. I'm in the midst of designing the tour right now and putting all the finishing touches on everything. And I really do have to say, I'm going to be very proud of it. It's going to be really stunning. And I think that I'm going to make sure everyone leaves having had an amazing time.
Yeah, people are really hungry for just like a great show. I think your fans are going to be so um, just like excited to be there. So Kacey, I want to talk about your new record because that's what we're here to do. But I was looking at some of the previews for the new season of Sesame Street, and maybe because I grew up with it, but I also have a 6-year-old son now, so
Oh, cool.
I'm always trying to like get him more into Sesame Street. But I couldn't help but notice that you're going to be back on this season.
I'm so excited. I'm a huge fan of Sesame Street, and it's honestly one of those bucket list things. I mean, Sesame Street has influenced generations of people, and I've loved how they've always infused music and learning together. And it was so fun, and honestly, really kind of trippy to get to see kind of behind the curtain of childhood a little bit. It kind of made me a little bit emotional. But everyone was super welcoming. It was such a classy, like fun environment. I got to sing a song, do a little skit, meet all the characters. I like totally fangirled over Oscar the Grouch. I was like, you were so relatable. I'm a stan, but no, it was really fun. So yeah, that's coming up really soon. I think it airs early December. So I'm excited for people to see that.
Yeah, we'll look forward to it. I'm talking with Kacey Musgraves. Now, the new record is called StarCrossed.
Mhm.
Kacey, I have to say, I really enjoyed listening to the album as a whole, as like a body of work, a collection of songs. 'Cause what you did with the record, I think you so beautifully told a story. Now, as I've been reading about the record and, music critics and music writers. I mean, if you want to boil it down, the headline is, this is Kacey's divorce record. You know that.
Mhm.
You've seen it. You wrote it.
I made
You lived
it.
it.
Yeah.
But Kacey, when I listen to this, I really hear this relatable story of someone going through grief and
Mhm.
processing change. And I think that there's a really beautiful kind of the sun comes out at the end kind of
Yeah.
ending to the story. So I wonder if you could talk about the record in that way and sort of the story arc, because it's really like everybody goes through their stuff and everybody goes through grief, whether it
Right.
be losing a relationship or losing a family member or just, losing your youth or, people grieve different things. But I wonder for you, kind of talk about the story arc of the album.
Man, yeah. Well, I did find myself going through, all the stages of grief on this record. And one thing that became really apparent to me is, and I say this in Justified is, healing doesn't happen in a straight line. And that's something you think like, my dog's chirping over here. Sorry if you hear Pepper in the background. But yeah, it's healing is very much up and down, and one day you might feel a strong sense of conviction and confidence and excitement for the future, and even happiness, and then the next you're like, oh my god, what am I doing, who am I, and you can get kind of lost in that too. So I think just like learning to embrace those ups and downs and knowing that they eventually will even out, like that was a big part of this for me. And like I have my writing, so like I wrote all those things down. And it's funny, like when I listen back to the record, I can even hear like myself contradicting myself, like from song to song in some ways, where I feel confident, and then in the next I'm kind of saying like the antithesis of what I had said in the other song. And that's how my healing journey was.
Hmm. And when you look at the stages of grief, even if I've applied them to my own life and loss. And the thing is, those stages of grief were designed for people that were terminal and people that were facing the end of their life. So the stages of grief to apply to the living can almost be difficult to find where the end is. And Kacey, I wonder, for you, like I said, the album really ends on this nice, like optimistic, almost celebratory note. What do you think, like, how does your grief sort of resolve? I mean, what do you think that extra stage maybe is in your life? Is it just optimism and hope? What do you think it is for you?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, I think resolve, acceptance, forgiveness to yourself, knowing, if you made a hard decision, there are a few decisions in this world that are so cut and dried and black and white. Most of them are, very tormenting when it comes to like choosing, what you think might be the right thing. And one thing that I wish someone would have told me growing up was that sometimes choosing the right thing or making the right decision feels wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's confusing. So I think like having compassion for yourself, and trusting yourself, surrounding yourself with honest people, trying to establish healthy routines, whether that's exercise or some form of therapy. I recently took up pottery, which has been fun. So I don't know. And I think it's just like really taking things one day at a time, not being too hard on yourself. I mean, there's a lot there,
Yeah, all of those things, excellent coping mechanisms. So thank you for sharing them.
Honestly, a glass of wine, like every night.
Yep.
Fuck it.
Exactly. I'm talking with Kacey Musgraves about the new record StarCrossed. So really, we talked about kind of the arc of the story and what you were writing about and going through. But what was your vision for how you wanted this record to sound? I mean, when it was time to, it was pen to paper, but then really kind of getting into music arrangements and the sound. What was your vision for that?
I'm inspired by a huge range of things. I mean, I grew up in Texas. So, there's always going to be that country element that I'm inspired by, the traditional kind of country thing. Around the house, I heard a lot of my dad played a lot of female songwriters, a lot of Fleetwood Mac, Alison Krauss, but then a lot of Neil Young, a lot of Tom Petty, Sade, all the things. And I'm a fan of like the Eagles and like Weezer. And going into this record, I had become a big fan of the John Hopkins playlist, which includes music from all over the entire world. And there's a lot of classical music woven into it too. So I just kind of had this vision of like telling the story of a modern romance gone wrong, a tragedy, if you will, and, set to like modern rhythms, and having some modern textures in there too, for sure, the synth and like the keys and a lot of that kind of stuff, but then like having it stay really warm with like the classical guitar, the acoustics, some steel, some of those elements too. So it's really just this big like patchwork quilt, but I feel like it kind of really represents me and like what I'm into, it's all over the place.
Yeah. I'm talking with Kacey Musgraves. We're talking about the new record StarCrossed, which by the way is out now. And we look forward to Kacey coming to the Twin Cities January 19th, St. Paul, XL Energy Center, right up the street here from Minnesota Public Radio. Kacey, you talk about, you're really at your heart a country girl. I mean, you're a Texas girl, but there is so much more, like so many more elements and genres that you're influenced by. And, I wonder with, the discussion of, like, is Kacey Musgraves country? Is she pop? I mean, you're certainly not the first artist to cross over into that world. So, this discussion about the Grammys. But I think what I want to ask you, and what I always want to ask a lot of artists that have kind of made that crossover from country to pop, because, I mean, my gosh, we go back to Patsy Cline and Dolly and Kenny, and Taylor Swift did it too. To you as an artist, in this day and age, do you think that genre really matters? And I think there's more to that question, but I think for you, like, is genre something that you take really personally, or do you think that that's all sort of, those lines are starting to fade away?
Well, when you look back in history and you look at some of the most iconic artists out there, like kind of have this theory that true great artists kind of create their own genres. When you look at the Beatles and you look at their music and you listen to it, what are they? You can't really, what's Joni Mitchell? What's, I don't know, like what they ebb and flow. What are the Eagles? Are they country? I don't know. They kind of are. But it's to me, like, I think, the only way that I really categorize music to myself is like, is this good or is this bad? Does this speak to me? Does it not speak to me? Is this authentic or is it not? Is it, and so those are kind of the things that I look for whenever I'm like choosing the music that I like and that I listen to. And I mean, the whole genre conversation is really interesting. I think that genres, genre labels may have been created back in the day to have somewhere to, like in a store like that was selling like CDs or tapes or vinyl, they needed a way to categorize those things. And that's where genres came in handy. These days with like the rise of streaming and stuff like that, like some of those old rules don't really apply. And I personally think it's really cool to see artists mixing a lot of different elements.
Sure. I'm talking with Kacey Musgraves, and I think as long as it's authentic and vulnerable and it tugs at your heartstrings, like at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's what country music is all about, no matter what it sounds like. I mean, I'm a fan of classic country music. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at my core, I'm a songwriter, I'm a storyteller, and
Sure.
that may sound differently as I ebb and flow through my like creative life. And I think that, people that loved Golden Hour may not love StarCrossed. And I think that's totally okay. I might, as I make different albums, I might bring some of the old fans along with me. But if not, then I might, catch some new ones along the way. I think like music is kind of meant to kind of ebb and flow, and the true artists that I like, I respect for changing things up and not just phoning in another record that sounds exactly the same just because they knew it worked before. I'm not going to do that.
Sure. And that's why your fans love you for it. Kacey Musgraves' new record is StarCrossed, January 19th, XL Energy Center. And, Kacey, it's getting to that time of year that I do want to encourage people, if you've never checked it out, Kacey has a wonderful, wonderful Christmas album. And your song with Willie Nelson, it's like, to me, it's become one of those, modern classics. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Have a Willie Needs Christmas,
Thank you.
everybody.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Kacey, well, you take care. Thank you so much for checking in with The Current.
Hey, thank you so much for playing me and supporting my music. It really means a lot to me to have it hitting the airwaves out there, and I just appreciate you spreading the love. So we'll see you whenever I come to play the first date on the tour.
All right, that's great. Well, we mentioned the song Justified in our conversation, so let's hear it on The Current.